My husband cheated on me for almost 2 years, and when I finally found out, he told me he would only sign the divorce papers if I gave him $3 million. So I gave him a courtroom instead. We had been married 11 years when I found the messages. I didn't scream. I didn't throw his phone across the room, even though some part of me wanted to. I sat down on the kitchen floor with my back against the cabinets, and I felt something in my chest fold in on itself, quietly, the way paper folds when you crease it too many times in the same place. When I finally stood up, I told him I wanted a divorce, and I told him I would be fair. I meant that. We'd built a life together, a house, 2 kids in middle school, a business we'd started side by side. I told him I'd split everything evenly, and I'd even let him keep the truck he loved more than most people, because I wasn't trying to punish him with money. I just wanted out. He looked at me like I'd offered him a coupon. He said, "Fair? You think fair is half of everything I built? I want $3 million, and I'm not signing a single page until I see it." I told him we didn't have $3 million. He said that wasn't his problem. He said, "You want out, you pay to get out. That's the deal. I'll stay married to you forever if I have to. I've got nothing but time." And he meant it. That was the part that took me the longest to understand. He wasn't negotiating. He was enjoying it. My attorney was a woman named Dana, mid-50s, reading glasses always pushed up into her hair like she'd forgotten she owned them. Her office smelled like old coffee and printer toner, and she had a way of listening to me talk for 20 minutes without once interrupting, then summarizing the entire mess in 2 sentences that made me feel, for the first time in weeks, like someone finally understood exactly what I was dealing with. She drew up the settlement exactly the way I asked, even split, plus a little extra for him on top, because I wanted this to be clean, and I wanted it to be fast. She told me flatly it was more than any court would ever award him. I told her I didn't care. I just wanted my life back. She sent it to his attorney, a man named Presley. 9 days later, it came back in the same envelope it left in, with $3 million written across the front page in thick black marker, underlined twice. No letter, no counteroffer, just the number, big enough to swallow the page. Presley called Dana and apologized. Actually apologized, which she later told me lawyers almost never do. He said his client wouldn't hear anything else. That night, my phone buzzed. A text from my husband. No context. No lead-in. "Enjoy being married to me forever, babe. I can do this for 10 years. I'm not in a rush." He had already moved in with the woman he'd been seeing, a coworker from his office everyone at his company apparently already knew about but me. He posted pictures of their weekend trips. He told our mutual friends how happy he finally was. And every single week, he refused to sign the one piece of paper that would let either of us move on. I want you to understand something about what the next year of my life looked like, because it's the part people struggle to believe. It was never about a number. Every time I thought I'd found the one that would finally end it, he moved it. I added the extra portion of the retirement account on top of the even split. He wrote back, "Cute, still not $2 million short of what I want." I offered to let him keep the lake house we'd bought together, on top of everything else. He wrote, "You think a lake house is $3 million? Do the math, babe." I stopped offering things. I just asked him plainly to please sign so we could both move forward. He wrote, "The affair was your fault anyway. You worked too much and stopped paying attention to me. $3 million is back pay for 11 years of being ignored." He said that to my face once, in the parking lot of our son's school, without blinking, like it was the most reasonable sentence a person could say. Then, in February, at almost midnight, my phone lit up. A text, direct, not through the lawyers. I read it 4 times standing in my kitchen with the tap still running. $1 million was still absurd. It was still more than any judge would ever hand him for 11 years of marriage where he'd been the one who cheated. And I didn't care, because it was movement, and I hadn't seen movement in nearly a year. I called Dana that night. She picked up sounding half asleep. I told her to draft it as fast as she could. There was a pause on the line, and then she said, carefully, "He's done a version of this before. Don't get your hopes up yet." I told her I heard her. I did not hear her. Dana took 4 days to draft it because she wanted every clause airtight, so there was nothing left for him to twist later. I signed my part standing at her desk, every page, and drove home already picturing the next chapter of my life. A smaller house somewhere quiet, my own name on the mailbox, waking up on a Saturday with nobody in the world entitled to be angry at me. I held that picture for 5 days. On the 5th day, Dana called and said my name in a way I already understood before she said anything else. He hadn't signed. She said he'd crossed out the million and written, in the margin, 3 million, plus the house, plus the boat. My phone buzzed while she was still on the line. Dana told me the rest, because Presley had told her. He'd been laughing when he wrote it. He'd sent the fake offer knowing exactly what it would do, knowing I'd call my lawyer at midnight, knowing I'd sign everything, knowing I'd start looking at apartments online. He let me sit in that hope for 5 days on purpose, and then he pulled it away, and he thought it was funny. I sat down at my kitchen table after that call, and the house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming, and something in me went very still. Not angry. Anger makes you move fast, and I did not feel fast. I felt clear, the way a road looks the second fog finally lifts off it. There was no number. Not 3 million, not 1 million, not any figure I could have written on a check. Being stuck was the whole point for him. He wanted to know I couldn't move, couldn't close the door, couldn't breathe without his permission, and he liked that far more than he would ever like a check with his name on it. I had spent a year trying to buy my way out of a cage built by someone who liked owning the cage. I called Dana the next morning before I'd even had coffee and said, "No more offers. I'm done asking. Tell me what else exists." There was a pause on the line. Then she said the sentence that ended everything, in hindsight. Months too late and exactly on time. "You keep thinking you need his signature. You don't. A court can end this marriage without it. He's not holding a door shut. He's standing in front of it making noise." I asked her to say it again. She did, slower this time. She told me to come in the next morning, and when I got there, she had a coffee waiting for me, which was the first thing anyone had done for me in a year without wanting something back. She laid it out flat. If one spouse refuses to cooperate, the court doesn't shrug and leave two people married forever. It takes longer, more filings, more hearings, more waiting, but a refusal is a delay, not a veto. His signature had never been a key. It was a story he'd been repeating until I believed it. I asked her why she hadn't pushed this on me sooner. She didn't get defensive. She opened a folder and slid 2 printed emails across the desk, both from her, both months old, both explaining exactly this. Filed away in my inbox, read once and forgotten, because I'd been so locked onto getting his signature that I never noticed the door standing open right next to it. "You weren't ready to hear it then," she said. "You are now." Then she told me the part that changed the shape of everything. A judge divides assets using a formula. Income, contributions, length of the marriage, not a number underlined in marker. What I'd already offered him, the even split plus extra, was almost certainly more than the law would ever produce for him. I'd been generous because I wanted out. A judge would not be generous. A judge would be accurate. I asked if the affair helped my case at all. She said cheating wouldn't move the financial math much where we lived. But she said something else that stayed with me. When a judge watches one spouse negotiate in good faith for a year, and the other spouse write ransom numbers in marker, that's not a legal penalty. It's a human one. Judges notice. I told her to file it. All of it. She warned me it would get loud before it got quiet, and it did. Presley called 2 days after the filing, apologizing again, saying his client wasn't taking this well, and asking if I'd consider returning to the table. Dana told him we'd negotiated in good faith for a year, and we'd see him in court. My husband called that night. I almost let it go to voicemail. When I picked up, the smugness in his voice was gone for the first time in a year. He sounded rattled, like a man who'd just been shown a rule he didn't know existed. "You can't take me to court without my permission. I never agreed to this." I stood in my kitchen and said, "That's the entire point. You never agreed, so the court is going to finish it without you." There was a silence on the line that had nothing behind it. Then he hung up. It was the first conversation in a year where I got the last word. He skipped the first hearing. So did Presley. Dana and I sat in a nearly empty courtroom while the judge made a note and set a new date. She leaned over and whispered, "He thinks if he doesn't show up, it can't happen. He's about to test that theory exactly once." At the rescheduled hearing, they both came. He walked in with his chin up, arms crossed, like he'd shown up to correct everyone in the room. The judge noted his prior absence, and before Presley could speak, my husband claimed he'd never received notice. Dana stood and handed up the delivery confirmation, his signature already on it. The judge looked at the paper, looked at him, and said nothing at all. He didn't need to. The final hearing was on a Thursday. The night before, Dana walked me through exactly what the room would weigh. Income, assets, length of the marriage, contributions, nothing else. She told me his share would land somewhere well under what I'd already offered on day one, before the extras, before any of it. She said the only instruction that mattered was this: don't react in there, whatever he says. The judge doesn't care about drama. The judge cares about numbers. Presley stood first and talked about 11 years of marriage, sacrifice, contribution to the household, careful never to say $3 million out loud, but steering hard toward a lump sum well above the formula. The judge listened, pen moving, giving nothing away. Then he looked up and asked one question in the flattest voice imaginable. On what legal basis are you requesting an amount above the standard division? Presley paused. 2 seconds, maybe, in a room that quiet. 2 seconds is a very long time. He said his client had been emotionally invested, that the marriage had shaped his entire adult life. The judge nodded once and asked again, was there a prenuptial agreement, a postnuptial agreement, anything in writing promising this figure? Presley said no, nothing on paper anywhere. Dana stood next. She didn't raise her voice, and she didn't try to make him look small. She walked the judge through the income records and the assets, dry and fast, because none of it was complicated. Then she reached into her folder and produced the very first settlement I'd ever offered, even split plus extra, and handed it up. This is what my client voluntarily offered, before any court was involved. It exceeds the standard division considerably. The judge read it. Then Dana handed up the second page, the one I knew was coming before it cleared the folder. The same document, returned with $3 million written across the top in black marker. This is how her husband responded. The judge held one page in each hand for a long moment and said nothing. He didn't have to. He set them down and asked my husband directly whether he had been offered the first settlement. My husband stood before Presley could stop him and said, loudly, that yes, he'd been offered that, but it was insulting. 11 years of his life, 11 years he'd given to this family, and he deserved $3 million for it. The judge asked if he'd also been offered $1 million at one point. He hesitated, glanced at Presley, then claimed it had been a trick, a lowball. The judge tilted his head slightly and said the last thing anyone said before the ruling, shaped like a question, though it wasn't one. So you were offered well above the standard division, declined it, and are now asking this court for a higher amount with no contractual basis. He opened his mouth. Presley put a hand on his arm. Whatever he saw on Presley's face closed it again. Then the judge read the ruling, standard division, based on income, contributions, length of the marriage. My husband's number came in noticeably below the offer I'd put in front of him for free, over a year earlier, before a single legal fee had been spent. The room stayed completely silent while it landed. He turned to Presley and said, loud enough for the whole room, "This is a joke. She offered me way more than this before. You told me to hold out. You said I had leverage." His voice cracked on the word leverage, like he was hearing how it sounded for the first time out loud. The judge signed the papers. My husband didn't sign anything. He never had to. That was the entire thing he'd built a year of games on top of, and it took the judge about 4 seconds with a pen that wasn't his. Dana shook my hand in the hallway and said, he spent a year and his own legal fees chasing $3 million and ended up with less than you handed him for free on day one. That's what happened, she said, when somebody mistakes stubbornness for strategy. I drove home with the windows down. At a red light, my phone buzzed once. 3 words. I blocked the number before the light turned green. A few weeks later, a mutual friend mentioned that the woman he'd left me for had moved out of his apartment. She'd apparently believed she was moving in with a man about to collect $3 million. What actually arrived was an ordinary settlement with a year of legal bills stapled to it. She was gone within the month. He lost the extra money he never had a real claim to. He lost the woman he left me for. He paid a lawyer a small fortune to sit next to him while all of it happened in front of a judge who never once raised his voice. I unpacked boxes in my new place that Sunday. The last thing I threw out was the manila envelope he'd sent back a year earlier, the one with $3 million still visible in thick black marker through the paper. I didn't need to keep it anymore. I finally believed it was over. My husband had an affair, then refused to sign our divorce papers unless I paid him $3 million, dangling and yanking back smaller, final offers for over a year just to watch me react. I finally let my lawyer pursue a contested divorce without his signature. The court awarded him far less than I'd voluntarily offered on day one, and he never got a say in it.